All right, so thanks everyone for taking a few minutes of your lunch break to tune into this webinar. I want to give maybe a minute or two to the people that haven't downloaded the Zoom app or having some trouble signing on. But in the meantime, I'm giving an idea behind what these webinars are. The idea is to give a short, under 30-minute deep dive into challenges that marketers face. Naturally, I'm not a long talker and I like to get straight to the point. So we're going to try out this format, see what people think. We've got a couple ideas for upcoming webinars, and I'll talk a little about what our next webinar is going to be towards the end. For those that don't know me, my name is Patrick King, and I'm a founder of Imagine. We're a branding, marketing, digital agency outside Washington in Manassas, Virginia. My quote-unquote career started as a kid with a logo design for a family member that they ended up using for about 30 years. And I started falling in love with marketing and advertising and what seemed to me at the time like witchcraft at an early age. I started Imagine about 14 years ago. Since then, we've worked with companies in the Fortune 500 all the way down to small and mid-market companies. We also do a lot of local and state government work in areas of economic development, tourism. We also work with public schools. I don't wear ties or even suits unless it's a wedding or a funeral. Typically, when there's a meeting that I have to go to, you're probably going to see me in a t-shirt. I do wear weird socks. Today's choice is Tootsie Roll Pop socks. I guess I was feeling a little sweet this morning. The agenda for today is really simple. We're going to cover 5 hard truths in advertising, and the way that I'm going to present them are, when somebody says I've got good news and I've got bad news, you always want the bad news first. Well, that's the way I'm going to do these hard truths. I'm going to talk about what the hard truths are, give you the bad news, and then the good news right after, and how you can avoid a lot of these hard truths. Then we're going to go over some common mistakes advertisers make and how you can avoid them. We're going to have a Q&A session. And finally, a special offer for sitting through this thing, listening to me run my mouth. For the Q&A, feel free to throw your questions in the chat at any point during the webinar, and I'll address them at the end. I have a couple that I've been sent ahead of time, and I'll answer them too at that point. So let's jump into part 1, the 5 hard truths. These are challenges that every advertiser faces, whether they've been at it for a while or just starting out. For each truth, I'll explain why they exist, then what you can do to prevent them. Hard truth number 1, no one has time for your ads. Ads are everywhere. They're on social media, in your mailbox, on your radio, in the magazines you read, and even the streaming services you pay for, but also in places you didn't realize. Your grocery store hits you with thousands of advertising pieces, from coupons to packaging, and your commute to work has work vans, restaurant and shop signs. All of this is advertising. The common average for research firms, marketing research firms, is about 4,000 to 5,000 ads a person will catch in a day. That always seems ridiculous. Ad blocking software like StopAd claims that an average of 200 ads a day are blocked on just desktop computers alone, not even mobile devices or television. So it seems that a few thousand, when you add it all up, may make sense. It's easy to see that people just don't have time for one more ad, including yours. With smartphones, streaming options, now smart speakers, Nielsen reports that overall media consumption has jumped from 45 to 65 hours per week only over the past 13 years. To put that in perspective, most of us are only awake 112 hours a week. So that's half your time spent staring at a screen or reading a magazine or something of that nature. Now, it's where we spend our time that can help you in improving your ad strategy. For example, advertising on television to reach millennials, not going to be as effective as maybe Instagram or in-app ads. Like, say you download a free game and you're playing that and these ads start showing up. They're targeted more towards millennials. Now, retirees that are still watching catheter commercials on Fox News and people my age are stuck somewhere in the middle. The amount of time spent that you see here is Q1 of 2018, which was a 5% increase total from Q4 of 2017. So that rate of media consumption, it's actually accelerating. So in this mix, an increase of ad exposure, what does a business like yours do to cut through all the other noise that people are experiencing? First thing is to mix it up. Those born from 1990 on switch media platforms an average of once every other minute. The rest of us have slightly better attention span, but we're still bouncing from one thing to the next. So in order for your advertising to work, it needs to be in more than one place. This is why services like programmatic advertising is growing in popularity. To break it down, programmatic is a service that has a ridiculously broad range of outlets. It can be online games, social media, news outlets, and so on. And by using programmatic, you're able to choose which ones your ads show on. The service charges per impression or click and gives you the benefits of that wide reach, but only one single point of cost control. So it makes it real easy for you to spend your ad budget wisely and distribute it to a number of different places. Next, I'd like to prove a point with a quiz. Of the following 5, which do you think has the highest reported response rate per 100 views? And no, you don't have to type it in the chat, just give it a moment of thought. Surprisingly, it's direct mail by a long shot. But I'm not saying to dump your money into a postcard campaign. What I'm saying is that direct mail response rate has gone up lately because so few people are using it. Everyone's doing paid search, everyone's doing social media or online display or email. And in the process, they've reduced the amount of direct mail that they're using simply because of cost. As a result, people that use direct mail are getting a higher response rate. When a form of media is used less often, it's less cluttered, and each ad gets more viewing time. So the lesson here is to go where your audience is, but your competition isn't. Some ideas to consider that aren't direct mail are SMS or text advertising, outdoor advertising, partnerships with local businesses, or even print outlets that you don't see your competition using. Check local magazines for ad overload, and if you're the only one that'll be advertising what you offer, do some more research into readership for those publications and see if you can be the big fish in the small pond. That's what it's really all about. Next, the saddest truth of all these really is that simply no one cares as much as you do. After all, your business is your job, it's your livelihood. If you own it, it's your baby. It's likely something you spend more waking hours on than anything else. You want your ads to work far more than anyone outside your business is going to care about. In fact, downloads for ad blocking software has gone through the roof. This isn't just voluntary downloads, but tech giants like Samsung and Google are baking ad blockers directly into their browsers. So if you've been running display ads and saw your numbers take a dump this year, that's part of the cause. People are in far more control lately. And you combine this with DVRs, streaming video services like Netflix and Amazon, and email spam filters, the consumer is in more control of their ad viewing than ever. And that trend will continue to grow, with Facebook limiting posts to pages to under 1% visibility, meaning that if you post to your page without boosting, and this is for company pages, not personal accounts, You can typically expect only 1 of 100 of your followers to see it. Of course, it encourages advertisers to get Facebook more money to boost, but it also comes from user complaints from users just seeing too many ads. So if the customer is shutting you out at almost every turn, what do you do? Well, there are a few tips that you can use to turn your ad into something that your audience actually cares about. First thing is to speak to their pain. On the left is a Facebook ad that we were running for a local childcare business, when we learned that there's a huge part of the market that doesn't need typical 9-to-5 childcare. Now, let's face it, a full week of childcare is super expensive. So we created a campaign that focuses on flexible scheduling. And that has been one of our most successful campaigns for that client because it speaks to a specific pain point. The next one is a direct mail piece targeted to, once again, childcare facilities. We talked about the problems we know they face with trying to keep things sanitary, how easy it would be to have our client loyal take care of it for them. Once again, we pinpointed an area of pain and made a successful campaign to address it. Next tip is the riskiest, but it can have the biggest payoff. We call this the Super Bowl ad approach. Emotional ads are more shareable, more memorable, even if they're horrible. I'm going to play an ad for you that may make you feel one or more of these emotions. A year or so ago, the creative director at Martin, which is the agency behind Walmart, all those corny Geico ads, and a ton of other clients you've seen, had a brother pass away while waiting for an available organ for transplant. After passing away, the creative director reached out to a national nonprofit to drive awareness of this problem. Now, a quick piece of advice: if you're watching this at an office where others around you may be offended, you might want to mute it now. You can email me later for the video with sound, but I think this video will really hit home.
This is a story about Coleman Sweeney. Coleman, in short, was an asshole. Everyone in his small town knew it. It wasn't that he tried particularly hard to be unpleasant. It just seemed to come naturally to him. Coleman felt like the whole world owed him something. Gods include regularly ignore the rules for decent and acceptable society. And he hated anything that got in his way.
So you got it. You got it. Go. Go. You can do it.
And small animals. Even for children, he was an asshole. He was, as they say, born to it. But then, the strangest thing happened. Something entirely unexpected. Coleman Sweeney died. Brain hemorrhage. Well, sudden arachnoid hemorrhage to be more specific. And it came as he argued over whether extra fries should be included in $1.99 early bird breakfast. It was a typical Coleman Sweeney play. It was then that Sarah found something completely unexpected. Coleman Sweeney had registered to be an organ donor. Nobody knew what caused Coleman to do it, but there it was, generous and majestic. And that was the day that Coleman went from asshole to hero. You see, his liver went to Stan, a father of 2. His heart went to Miranda Morgan, went on to teach for 25 more years. And his tendons, the staff sergeant Donahue, who was able to walk again, will never need to be put across the street by his physical therapist. In a moment of small world irony, Cornea had to his 82-year-old next-door neighbor so that she could finally see the crap that her dog made in the side yard and pick it up. That's in life, only moved a bona fide asshole. 365 days a year, 24/7. But in death, well, let's just raise our middle fingers and shout, "Up yours, Coleman Sweeney. You're not an asshole anymore."
So now I'm sure we're all feeling something from that. And that ad has been seen by millions of times. In fact, that ad has a higher IMDb rating than most movies. Understanding that we don't all have a Hollywood budget, though, we can all use humor or tell some sort of a story that pulls emotion from people. Recently, there was a tech hardware company in DC that decided to try on some humor. And while it's in pretty bad taste, it did get a lot more eyeballs than those reading the Washington Post where it was originally published. Now, I'm not advocating the message here, but I do have to say that if they were looking for reach, they got it. The ad was covered on the USA Today website, among many, many others. There was a big backlash on Twitter. But whatever your brand of humor or suspense or storytelling you have that aligns with your brand, don't be afraid to use it. Because remember, we're all still people. We kind of follow the same thing here with our, Just the Tips series and Why Your Advertising Sucks. Because really plain, direct, sometimes tongue-in-cheek language, that reflects who we are. A safer, less offensive way to go is with what's called sponsored content, which is content that you've paid to have placed that isn't an ad as much as it is an article. Some call these advertorials, and they're immune to ad blockers because they're actual page content. Sponsored content is measurable since you can track not only views, but also incoming and outgoing traffic to where it's published. It also tells a story, which helps people relate to your why. And that can be a very, very powerful thing. Some types of sponsored content are native ads, or the articles I just spoke of, but also influencer marketing, which leverages the social capital of a local celebrity, an industry expert, or a person with a significant social following that can endorse your company, your product or service. Usually, those endorsements cost you money. What it's not includes press releases or your own social media or your blog, since you most likely aren't paying for the placement there. Even if you pay to have a press release distributed by PR Web or by an agency like ours, the media outlet itself isn't charging to release it. So technically, it's not sponsored content. Some quick notes about sponsored content, and then we'll move on. First, as I said before, try to tell a story. That gives a chance for you to start an emotional connection with the reader. Second, use visuals to support the story. And then finally, you need a disclosure like what you see on the image here. There needs to be a sponsored or a message from our sponsor statement at the top of the article. The government has a field day with those who don't, to the tune of millions of dollars per mistake. So make sure that you're really careful with that. The next tip is our favorite: picking a cause that aligns with your mission and partnering up with them. Doing so accomplishes a few things. More importantly, you're making a difference in your community, but you're also expanding your audience to their followers as well. If you know anything about Imagine, you know we partner with a bunch of local charities like CASA, Manassas Education Foundation, and a bunch of others. But we've also paired clients with nonprofits as well. The earned media has been a lot more than they could have ever received on their own. For one client, Loveless Porter, we paired them up with a couple of organizations that desperately needed help in literally breaking ground. So Sean Porter over there offered design services for them, and in turn got a ton of positive press. Now, the final hard truth is that your first ad is going to let you down. Even after all the research, messaging, design, outlet selection, your first ad will still underperform. This is due to a basic fact of human nature. That is, you need to build trust to build a relationship. Think about it like a networking event or a trade show. The first time you meet someone, it's a bit distant, maybe even cold. At the next event, you talk a bit more, conversations get deeper, things get warmer. Eventually, they get to know you, trust you, then want to support you. This process takes time, and your ads need to work the same way. Now, part two, it's going to be a bit shorter, since by this point, you know the hard truths of advertising. These are common slip-ups that are made in the process of making and running the ads. Mistake number one, trying to appeal to everyone. Not everyone is your customer. Not everyone's your ideal customer, no matter how much you want them to be. If it's a large group of people, don't try to appeal to them with a single message. You have two choices when it comes to marketing. You can either go broad, reach a lot of people, and mean very little, or you can mean a lot to a specific group of people. Now, at Imagine, we do this through a lot of segmentation. So we figure out who the ideal personas are and then create specific campaigns for each one, so that we are going deep to a specific group of people, multiple specific groups. I've had clients that started with wanting both. We want to go broad and we want to go deep, and only realizing that it only ends up being just broad and less effective than making ads that connect with people on an individual level. Next is bad planning. A lot of in-house advertising, when you don't have the resources in-house, it's done in a hurry. And understandably so, because it's done by people that have so much else to do. So a lot of stuff is overlooked. You need to have an offer, first and foremost. The reader needs the next step. Next is researching channels among the hundreds of viable options that you have, to doing enough audience research to fully understand pain points, and so on. Instead of just slapping something together, the ad needs creative that makes people care. Finally, there needs to be a time frame for them to act. Not all ads are really good at being evergreen, and if you want to get good data so you can determine what the return on investment for that ad is, there needs to be a set time frame. Another big mistake is just talking about yourself and forgetting to mention the benefit you have for the reader. Ads like these are dry, distant, and often ignorable. If there is a screenshot moment in this webinar, this is it. Your ad's job is to do more than promote. You have to mean something to your audience, whether it's to enlighten, educate, entertain. Those come first. Second is selling. I'm sure I'll piss off some salespeople with that statement, but I'm afraid that's the way it is. The next mistake is placing an ad and letting the same one run for like 6 months or so. Whether it's print, social media, Google AdWords, you need to constantly refine your ad, staying relevant to seasons, mixing it up with new messaging, because in a 6-month span, you can really figure out what messaging resonates with people, instead of just hoping that the same ad running forever and ever is going to work. Finally, paying for everything. There are a ton of options for getting earned and shared media, which don't cost anything. Now, these rely heavily on the PR value of what you're doing, like the nonprofit partnerships I talked about earlier. But PR and marketing agencies use what's called the Peso Model, P-E-S-O, which finds opportunities in every area of media. You might want to screenshot this one too. Now, there's paid media, which we all expect. But then there's owned content that you can publish and share out on social networks and industry publications. Earned media is my favorite because it's free, gives you a very wide but relevant audience, and it's usually used with some type of an emotional story. Even influencer engagement that you'll see on the right, which you'll see as an overlap of shared and earned media, is pretty powerful. I wrote an article earlier this year that you can find on our blog about how to turn angry customers, whether it's on Yelp or Facebook or Google, how you can turn those angry customers into vocal advocates for you. A lot of companies I've seen will try to argue online, which is just super bad form. But it can be a powerful tool for you. So, looking at the time, I want to stay under 30 minutes. I want to take any questions that you guys might have. Let me see. All right, there we go. All right, I do have a couple questions that I'm gonna answer real quick, and feel free to type them in the group chat if you have any. The first was, how do we use influencer marketing if we can't get a hold of a celebrity? Well, an influencer is not necessarily, it doesn't have to be some popular household name, but what it can be is a customer of yours that has some clout, or it could be a colleague, it could be a vendor, because just like you have a social audience, your vendors and your partners, they also will too. And having that type of testimonial can be pretty powerful. Oh, exactly. Like Jason Schreiner just put in, interviewing popular community center members on the blog, and exactly, and those blogs do get shared like crazy. It's like a more evolved version of testimonials, and when you do it that way, chances are you're not going to have to pay for it. It's only when you have people that are completely removed from your organization that you have to worry about paying for. The second question was, why do Apple and Coke not have calls to action or a lot of the things that I mentioned? And it's really because Apple, Coke, Google, Starbucks, they've all kind of graduated. Their advertising is for top of mind awareness. It's not particularly for a call to action. You don't see a Coke commercial on television while you're watching a show and go, oh, holy crap, I gotta run up to the store and go get some Coke. No, it's not designed to do that. It's designed to just keep it at the top of your mind and entertain you. So you can associate fun times or polar bears or fun, happy stuff with their brand. So they've kind of graduated to a new level because everybody knows what Coke is. So it's a totally different approach. Let me see. I think that's it. So I'd like to thank everybody sticking around. And for those that did, I'd like to offer a complimentary 1-hour consulting brainstorming session to go over what your specific advertising issues are and help start a strategy to fix them. But in following my own advice, making things time sensitive, it's only valid if you email me today. Besides, we're putting this up on YouTube later this week, and I don't want to get anyone that wasn't here today to try to take me up on it. With that, I thank you for your time and hope you see you at the next webinar, which will be, we're coming up with something. I think the working title is like how to stop doing social like a noob. It's gonna focus on how social has changed and how to approach 2019 with a more aggressive social strategy that's really going to be worth your time and your money. So I hope you all keep an ear out for that. We'll probably be announcing the date here in the next week. So thank you very much, and you now have a half an hour to do your lunch break. Thank you.